Right, in this video, we're going to be going over exactly how you can run your email without ruining your margins. A lot of times I see people giving away discounts when completely unnecessary. So in this video, we're going to go over exactly what you can do to minimize the amount of discounts you're giving out and obviously keeping more profits inside of your pocket. Let's jump straight into it. Number one, we're going to be going over the economics of what happens when you give away a discount, because a lot of times a 20% discount is going to affect more than just 20% of your margin. Let's take a look at this example of an $100 order. A lot of times you get that $100 and then you have COGS, which is $30, let's say 30%, shipping and fulfillment, another $10, payment and transaction fees, $3, marketing and blended CAC, $20, okay? Your gross profit is $37 before that discount. Once you apply a 20% discount, you're going to end up with a $17 profit, right? That's more than half of your entire profit coming from that 20% off, which ends up not being just 20% off of your own profit. It's very important to take a look at your economics and to see if you're actually able to run those discounts at a good margin, right? Because a lot of times it looks like it's just a 20% off, but it ends up hurting your brand way more than you think it does. So it's very, very important to try to minimize the amount of discounts that you're actually using, if not necessary, and try to get the customers to purchase while maintaining your margin or almost at full cost, right? Something else that I found quite interesting is that a lot of times customers who buy with full price tend to have a higher LTV and tend to stay with you for longer rather than customers who are just discount led, right? As you can see right here, it's roughly 25% lower 12-month LTV for discount led customers. The industry average is 20 to 30%. Discount first buyers come back less and spend less. Full price buyers compound, but only if the product actually fits them. A great offer can't save a product that doesn't earn the second purchase. Like I said, retention doesn't matter if your product is dog shit. If you train your customers to wait until they have a discount, they'll wait, right? A lot of times for brands that just give away discounts like it's nothing, they think it's not harming them at all, but what they're actually doing is training their customers to only buy once there's an incentive and not to buy full price. And that's an issue because a lot of times you can't scale profitably always offering discounts like that. You can see how this affects a brand doing 150K a month. If they save 1% on monthly discounting, they're going to be getting at the end of the year 18K added to their margin, right? It's not going to be revenue, it's going to be just pure margin. Discounting isn't just a small leak, it's a gushing one, and you need to make sure that you're minimizing it as much as possible. Now, there are a few different cases, like for example, subscription brands. You want to make sure that your first offer is as appealing as possible, so potentially giving away a really, really big discount, but that's just to increase your take rate, your first order take rate. And what that's going to do is ensure that the customer jumps onto the subscription, and in the long run, it is going to be more beneficial. But this, I'm talking only about brands that are not subscription. So one trick that you can actually do to protect your margin a little bit is, let's say that you have a live sale going on. For the sake of the example, we're going to use 20% off, okay? If you have 20% off, a lot of times you can just use that as incentive for the customer to subscribe. And once they opt in, you can just say that your discount is automatically applied at checkout, right? If you have a 20% off and on top of that, you offer them another 15% off discount code, 35% total discount is going to be the new floor, right? And you're going to train customers to expect that bigger discount. As you can see, we already have the summer sale going on, which is 20%. And a lot of times, if you offer that incentive, it's going to be enough for them to opt into the newsletter, right? You don't have to erode your margins even more by giving them another 15% on top. A few offers that you can test if you don't want to erode your margins too much is you can do free gift with purchase. A lot of times it's cheap COGS and it's high perceived value. Free shipping threshold raises AOV instead of cutting price. Early access to drops. Status is better than saving for top customers. So now with flows, a lot of times you want to give away that incentive or give away that discount at the very, very end of the flow. Reason being is because a lot of times the customer only needs a nudge or only needs a different objection to be overcome for them to actually purchase, right? Of course, the biggest objection is the price, but that's the one that you're going to attack at the end after you've overcome all the other objections and while still maintaining a healthy margin. As you can see in this welcome email, we don't give them an extra discount until the very, very end. Of course, these emails are going to be talking about the incentive that the customers, the reason why the customer signed up in the first place. But if we give them the discount right away, right at the beginning, like I mentioned before, you just train the customers to buy with a discount, right? So we want to only offer the discount at the very, very end. So same thing with cart and checkout abandonment. The only one that would be different is in the post-purchase, right? Because it depends a lot on the brand. If you have good retention on the brand and you see that the community is engaged, a lot of times you don't need a discount. You just need to release a new product or remind them or try to get them to buy again, but you don't necessarily need a discount. However, if your retention is bad, a lot of times you can be more aggressive with the discounting strategy. Now, the same concept applies in campaigns, whereas 70 to 80% of your campaigns and your content calendar should be non-discount emails, so educational, community building, and the rest should be promotional. That can be, for example, now we're in May, it can be Mother's Day, something along those lines. But if you just discount all the time, like I mentioned before, you're just training them to buy only when there's a discount and not when you're overcoming their objections naturally or organically. So here's a few campaign angles that you can use to overcome objections, which aren't directly linked to price, but a lot of times if the objection is not the price, then you can overcome those objections using these angles. So if it's a matter of trust, you can use a founder letter, brand origin story, what we don't do, behind the brand, press and award. If they're worried about quality, then you can do an ingredient deep dive, how it's made, sourcing story, testing and certification versus industry standard, like an us versus them. If it's an issue with value, 1 USP per email, bundle reveal, stack the value, cost per use math, LTV of the product. If your customers are comparing your product with other products, so for example, let's say that they're product aware, you want to use us versus them grid. We tried other ones, switch your story, spec breakdown, stuff along those lines. If they're worried that the product is not for them, then you want to do a use case spotlight, who it's for, customer profile, best for X, drops. Now to conclude, here are 7 margin protecting alternatives that you can do instead of just discounting all the time. Number 1, start at 10% off and then end at 20. A lot of times 10% off is going to be enough to get customers to convert, but for the customers that didn't convert at 10% off, a lot of times if you offer them a bigger incentive, they will convert. And you're going to be getting those purchases regardless, but you're not going to be eroding your margin for the customer who would have bought at 10 and you gave them a 20% off discount. Number 2, for brands that have higher AOV or they're a higher ticket product, a lot of times you want to do a dollar amount off rather than discount or percentage off, because it sounds much better if you're giving them $50 off than 5% off, right? Because it might be like a $1,000 product or a product that costs a lot, which a lot of times, if you offer them a dollar amount off, it's gonna look way better than a percentage amount off. Number 3, offer them a free gift instead of a discount. A lot of times, this is pretty cheap to run depending on the brand, and it increases your perceived value as well as a brand. Number 4, have some thresholds to raise your AOV. A lot of times you can have a threshold for free shipping, for free gifts, and that's gonna incentivize the customer to add more to their cart without necessarily offering them a discount. Number 5, for your VIPs, especially if you run a fashion brand where it's drops or something along those lines, don't offer discounts, just give them early access, and a lot of times that'll be enough to get them to convert. Number 6, a lot of times a personal note from the founder is enough to get them to convert. And a lot of times, if you do offer the incentive or a discount, it's gonna be really powerful if you just use a plain text email from the founder, because it just cuts through all the noise in the inbox and it's way easier for the customer to grasp, especially if you make it as simple as possible for the customer to digest, like a very simple letter. Number 7, if you run discounts all the time, then you can't just completely cut discounts off from one day to another. You need to retrain your audience to buy without discounting, right? And that's gonna happen slowly. It might take you 30, 60, 90 days, but it's very crucial that you do so that you can protect your margin. So to conclude, here's the spine of the whole non-discount strategy. Number 1, use the form to highlight the live sale, not stack a second discount on top of it. Number 2, in flows, objection come first, the discount is last, and only if the subscriber didn't buy it. Number 3, in campaigns, 70 to 80% are non-discount, each one solves an objection. Number 4, when you do incentive, swap percentage off for a free gift, free shipping threshold, or early access. Number 5, track full price LTV, not just the attributed revenue. Klaviyo's revenue number tells you what was bought through email, but not whether the customer paid full price or only bought because of a code. Full price LTV is a true measure of a brand's health because it shows whether your buyers come back without being bribed. So I hope this video was helpful. Every week I'm going to be posting new videos on how you can get the most out of your email strategy. If you're a brand doing 80K USD or more, you can just book a link in the description. We'll give you a free audit. We'll tell you what you're doing wrong, what you're doing good, and give you an entire roadmap of what you can actually do. If the video is helpful, I'd appreciate it if you just give a like and a subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.